Hey, Browns fans, Spencer German, Anthony Meglin with you one final time from Huntington Bank Field, where the Browns fall to the Cowboys 33-17. Offense, we talked about a ton. That unit obviously struggled mightily to put points on the board. The defense, I think, Anthony, did their best for a stretch of time. They tried to sort of limit the damage early on in that game as the offense went 3-and-out again and 3-and-out again and 3-and-out again. And ultimately, I think the things just kind of busted at the seams eventually, and they couldn't stop the floodgates from opening up, and Dallas ended up kind of rolling. I think there was still some positive signs that this defense is going to be a good unit this year. Dallas was only 4 of 14 on third downs today. Dak didn't have like an overly crazy good game. He had like 170 yards or something like that, and just the one touchdown pass. And he was under duress for large portions of this game. I mean, he was sacked 3 times. There was a number of quarterback hits in there, some pressure. So I think all that was encouraging. Denzel Ward almost had 2 picks that went through his hands. That guy just needs to learn how to catch, and maybe the game goes differently. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that they looked like the dominant force that we saw in week 1 of last year. But week 1, sort of a feeling out process, and hopefully they kind of get their momentum going as the season draws on. I thought they did, given the circumstances they were handed from the offense, I thought they did a fairly solid job of just trying to kind of keep their team in the game.
They battled, man, and momentum's a hell of a thing too. And the Browns' offense had none of it, right? And the fact that they were just going on the field, 3-and-out punt, 3-and-out punt. They had 1 first down in the first half, and what did they finish with? 3, 4, something like that. And Dallas did call off the dogs in the second half a little bit and kind of change their attack, but still, I thought the defense did a fine enough job. Giving up 33 points, you take 7 away from that punt return, and then they had 4 field goals, so you had 12 points due to field goals. We talked about that in the pregame. Like, they have to be much better about keeping teams out of the end zone and holding them to 3 points, and I thought they did a nice job of that. Obviously, had that big play to Brandon Cooks down in the red zone on third down, like it was so close to them getting off the field, but had a miscommunication in coverage.
Yeah,
that happens. But I thought they really competed hard.
I think that touchdown pass you reference, it's a good thought by you. When I looking at the replay, it looked like Juan Thornhill was watching CeeDee Lamb kind of crossing, and he missed. He just caught on late that Brandon Cooks was kind of running across his face, and as a safety, you don't ever want that to happen. So, especially knowing the coverage that they were in, which I think it was, some sort of version of man with it was the 2 safeties high, and he knew that was his zone, and the guy got and Cooks just beat him, and he didn't get over there in time. So, but it makes sense. Like, you're going to obviously watch CeeDee Lamb, but yeah, that was very reminiscent of like 2022 Browns stuff where there's miscommunications on the back end, and it led to the early touchdown. But obviously that wasn't a backbreaker. It was early enough in that game. And then again, because I just think like they kept getting handed difficult situations and not getting a lot of rest time off the sideline, to hold the Cowboys to field goals on a number of drives kind of consecutively, I thought was pretty impressive in its own right as well. So yeah, I think there was positive signs. It wasn't the effort from last year, but there was positive signs.
And they came out in the first drive of the game, right? We talked about it. What did I want? I wanted the Cowboys to get the ball and defense to come out and enforce them to go 3-and-out. They did that. Dalvin Tomlinson, sweeps around and just smacks Dak Prescott right in the face on the first drive of the game. And then Cleveland gets a nice punt return off it, and you're like, uh-oh, here we go. This is the team we've been waiting for. Obviously, none of that continued. That was pretty much the peak of the entire game, was those first 5 minutes there. But I thought they really, competed hard. Zadarius Smith got a sack. Myles Garrett had a sack. And dude, let me just real quick, he was an inch away from changing the game on that strip sack that kind of bounced off to the sidelines. If he gets his hands on that football, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah scores, and it's a game of inches. How many times does Myles Garrett get around the edge and just barely miss getting to the football? And he did it a couple times tonight. I mean, it's hard to fault anything the defense did. The Dallas Cowboys have one of the best offenses in all of football, and Cleveland held them to under 300 yards of total offense. I think that they certainly did their part and showed that they're going to be another dominant force, just as they were last year.
Yeah, I think that's well said by you in terms of the start of the game and just different elements that we kind of saw on display. In the same breath, like I did, there were some areas that I think they can improve
Mhm.
as well. I was surprised at how effectively it seemed Dallas was able to run the football today to an extent. I mean, we heard so much about they have the worst running back room in football, the Dallas Cowboys. Ezekiel Elliott in his older age, and it looks kind of like prime 2016 Zeke jumping over
He
guys and
jumped
trying to
over,
hurdle
yeah,
people.
he jumped
Yeah,
over.
like
Yeah.
I think they averaged like 4.1 yards per carry, had over 100 yards rushing. That was something that was different from last year that we didn't necessarily see, and I thought that actually kept their offense pretty balanced and allowed them to do some other things effectively as well.
Yeah, and they rushed it 25 times. And one of the big ones that was really frustrating, and it was something that reared its ugly head from last year, are those damn jet sweeps that were
Yeah, I
successful.
was gonna get to that next. Yeah,
It's amazing, and it's really hard with the way that Jim Schwartz calls a defense, and how so aggressive it is, and it's man to man, and it's like they're trying to just play like this version of backyard football where it's just me versus you, and we like our guys better than theirs, but you can mess around with that with motion and different things. And when you get guys flying around, especially in the backfield, you do a quick little handoff that no one sees. There's not guys accounting for it because they're not sitting in zones and all that stuff.
yeah.
I'm not getting too technical. It's just something that you
No,
thought
no. I,
would be nipped in the bud, and it just wasn't.
I think that's worth mentioning. I do think that's a weakness on this team. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we know this team plays a lot of man. But I mean,
Mm-hmm.
think about it. When you're doing those jet sweeps and you're motioning guys across, there's a delayed sort of coverage to those guys because the player that's in man with that player has to run all the way across the formation to kind of get to match up with their guy. And I think that was something we saw the Texans do in that. I don't know if I said that right. It sounded more like I had an I in there instead of an E, but that we saw that in the Texans game. And that was something that they exploited in them. Like they were like, hey, we're going to get you kind of going in motion and chasing on plays and that worked to their advantage. The Cowboys used that blueprint from that Texans game in the playoffs last year, and sort of did some things. With CeeDee Lamb, they did some things. He had a couple rushes today. He overall in the game, he receiving wise wasn't completely dominant, but 5 receptions for 61 yards. But they were clearly trying to find ways to get the ball in his hands and get him, going downfield and making some plays for them. And that jet sweep stuff was effective. I also thought the screen stuff that the Cowboys did was very effective.
Well, and it's just different ways to attack man coverage, and when you're getting it, that's the crazy part. Is that we talked about it in the hit we did with our offense, right? Where we were expecting the Browns offense to use motion and use all these sorts of stuff. The reason that the Cowboys used it so much tonight is because it tells Dak Prescott exactly the coverage he's getting. Guess what? If CeeDee Lamb motions across the formation and Greg Newsome follows him, guess what, dude? You're getting man coverage. If Greg Newsome passes him off, you're getting zone coverage, and that tells the quarterback where he's going to go with the football. And it's very easy. It's a form of sign language, right? You're using motion to tell the quarterback what he's going to get, and they did it effectively. And to their credit, CeeDee Lamb's their best player, and they found ways to get him the football, right? 5 catches and then 3 rushes, and he had almost 100 yards of total offense. Didn't get in the end zone, but 88 has the ball in his hands, the dude's electric, and they just continue to find ways to do that with formation, with motion, with creativity, something that we lacked on offense. I keep going back to the offense because I'm so mad about it, but I know that this is more defensive focus, and I thought the Browns, while they did compete, did get exposed in a couple areas.
Yeah, and it was hard because as the offense played poorly, as the defense did give up some plays that you were that were probably a little bit frustrating for people to see. There was also some plays in there that I thought were really good. There was actually this
Mm-hmm.
one play I remember early in the game. It was like a stack wide receiver formation, and I thought the Browns communicated it really well. And then it led to I believe it was Martin Emerson who made like a really nice PBU on a play. And there were some other moments like that. Denzel Ward almost had 2 picks, like we mentioned. There were some other plays that you want to get excited about, but it seemed like every time it was like, a step forward, it was like another step back in some instances, whether it was from the offense or some of the issues that the defense kind of had with the motion and things. But yeah, that looked like it was still a problem for this team, and it's something that they're going to have to answer to now as the season progresses and be able to find sort of a counter for, or else teams are going to continue to expose them using it.
Yeah, and you thought we would get an answer to it this year, but we didn't. But that's going to be the case now. And guess what? You play a Jaguars team next week that played you last year and that had the book on you last year. They scored a bunch of points. on you last year, and we needed a little bit of that Flacco magic that we had at the end of the year just to beat those guys. So they have a good game plan, and they're going to have a really good game plan coming in next week. So, it's no rest for the wicked. You come out, you have an awful taste in your mouth, and you know that you're going down to Jacksonville, and you better get back on that plane with a victory, or it's going to get really challenging to continue, get to where you want to go this season.
Yeah, I don't remember all the stats off the top of my head about teams that start 0-2 and making the playoffs, but it's not it's not very good. That's probably the best way we can say it, the easiest way we can say it. So yeah, that Jaguars game feels like a big one. The defense is going to need to step up, especially if the offense needs a few weeks to kind of get going here. We'll see if they can do that on the road at Jacksonville next week. In the meantime, as always, we encourage you to find more content like this at the Cleveland Browns on SI YouTube channel. And of course, the Cleveland Browns on SI. We got a bunch of written content up there just about different things happening, different stuff said at post game, whatever else it might be. And stick around, keep following along with Cleveland Browns on SI, as we'll have plenty more coverage of your Cleveland Browns.